Hi guys, I'm Tempest, and I've been challenger every single season in the top 5 of the ladder. I'm known as one of the best Yasuo mains in NA, and in today's guide, I'll be teaching you all that I know about Yasuo's ability combos, matchups, and I'll also be sharing some neat tricks. Remember to subscribe for more, and let's get started. Yasuo looks very intimidating, but the best ways to counter him is just pick a champion that has really high CC. Mid lane, for example, you pick Annie, Lissandra, and the gank setup with your jungler is just insane. You should just always ping your jungler to come gank and pick a high CC champion. He's the best way to deal with Yasuo, because he's a champion that has no escape except for Eing on minions, which are never behind him. So basically, he's always going to play aggressive. So if you have a high CC champion, just coordinate with your jungler and you should be able to kill him a lot during the laning phase without him getting ahead. The best matchups for Yasuo are definitely ones where you could utilize his wind wall the best. The best matchups would be against Vel'Koz. You could block everything but his ulti. Xerath, block his E, dodge out of his Q easily, and Orianna. It's not the easiest matchup, but you could block her E, her Q, and just easily play around her abilities. The Yasuo versus Zed matchup, it's actually very Zed favored, in my opinion. A lot of people think Yasuo wins, but he really doesn't. The reason being, a good Zed will never get hit by Yasuo's third Q, ever, because he has ult to dodge it, and he has his W to dodge it. So Yasuo should never be able to ult Zed, ever, and Zed can just easily all-in him by maxing E, so the wind wall is basically useless, and Zed is not maxing his Q, so he does not have to hit a Q on you to all-in you. But Yasuo does win pre-6, but after 6, it's definitely Zed favored by far. Annie and Lissandra are probably the hardest matchups mid lane, in my opinion. You shouldn't die to them 1v1, but they just neutralize you, so you can't really play the laning phase and get kills. Which, with Yasuo, you generally have to get ahead, because he's a very feast or famine champion. So if you don't get ahead, get a high CS lead, you're not going to do too well. I would say the Fizz Yasuo matchup is a close matchup, but I usually win that matchup. You just have to play around dodging his E with your E. He should never land E on you. He should never land Shark on you with W. And you could just all-in him after his E is down. And you should always build an early Hex Drinker. I would say the most important combo on Yasuo is definitely the Air Blade, which is you knock someone up with your tornado, and then you EQ to something, and then ult them. By doing this, you transfer your EQ onto them, so they take an extra EQ worth of damage in your ultimate, and when you land, the next time you press Q, your tornado is going to come up on the next one, which is very important, and you should do this every single time you knock someone up. But you can only do it when you have enough attack speed, which is like after you get Berserker Greaves and a little bit more attack speed like a Zeal, but you should do that every time, except for sometimes when there's other enemies around where they could CC you when you try to do it. Then you don't want to risk it and you should just ult. But generally speaking, you should always go for an Air Blade. And the other popular combo is, people call it the Beyblade. I just call it an EQ Flash. It's as important as the Air Blade, but you don't want to do it every time. For example, in laning phase, let's say you want to finish off a kill by EQ ulting them. Instead of just EQing onto them, it's obvious they're going to flash, right? Because they're just going to die. But to catch them off guard, you want to EQ to a minion and then flash. So then you get the knockup on them and they won't expect it at all. So it's very, very useful in getting free kills. Another use for that is, let's say you're playing at Sephiora. If you EQ onto her, she's just going to parry. If you EQ flash from a minion, she's not going to expect it and won't W in time. So it's a very good way to get your ult off in a different way that's not expected. Another thing you could do with Yasuo is, instead of just Eing through the wave, like let's say you're against an Ahri and you want to wind wall before she E's you, if you just E through a wave without Q and then W, you're going to get hit by the charm and just die. But if you EQ W, you could actually use the wind wall during your dash, which should catch a lot of people off guard. This combo is very useful against Ahri, Twisted Fate, and champions like Vel'Koz, which can throw out a Q, or Lux. Champions that just have snares that will try to snare you during your E. So that's when the EQW combo comes very handy. A basic thing you should always do with Yasuo is every time you knock someone up, you should always auto attack before you ult. It's just extra damage, and there's no point of not doing it. The most common mistake people make with playing Yasuo is playing way too aggressive. When you play Yasuo, just because you have no cooldowns does not mean you need to fight your enemy 24/7. The most important thing with Yasuo is actually just not dying, as simple as it sounds. But a lot of Yasuos, he is known for dying the most, which is true. He is on average has the most deaths per game because Yasuo players just fight non-stop. But all you really have to do is farm, get your power spikes, and focus on not dying. The first power spike you get with Yasuo is definitely Berserker Greave Rush. Before then, your attack speed is very low, and you can't really take long trades. Before then, you just want to take small trades, like E, Q, auto, and then E back out. Because your Q has a very long cooldown early on. It's like 3.5 to 4 seconds early on. But as soon as you get Berserker Greaves, it's the first big spike you get, because you can make all-in trades very easily. The next big spike is Static Shiv. If you're going Static Shiv, it's a massive power spike, and the item is generally very weak until you finish all of it, because the proc that it gives you is like an extra 100 magic damage plus, depending on level. So that's the first item power spike of Yasuo is actually when he's probably the strongest in the game. That or his 2 power spike, which is Static Shiv IE, makes him very strong. If you're ahead, you can make 1v3 plays possibly, or even more. Another big mistake that Yasuo players make is not just playing too aggressive, but not knowing lane management. I've seen a lot of Yasuos play, and they just AFK push the lane 24/7, because obviously he has higher push pressure than most champions in the game, because he has no cooldowns compared to other mid laners. But a lot of the times, you want the lane to push back to you, so you could actually go for a long trade, since you don't want the enemy on tower all game long. Because if you do this, and you can't roam, then you're basically just both free farming, which is not what you want. You definitely want to manage your lane a lot of the times when you're not contesting Scuttle Crab. So if there's no Scuttle to contest, you should always let the lane push back to you sometimes, so you could actually go for a trade and all-in against the enemy mid laner. This is especially helpful more in top lane, because lane management is a lot more useful there. Mid lane, you can get away with just pushing. Top lane, a lot of the times, most of the time in top lane, you want to just freeze under tower so you're immune to ganks, and you could force the enemy laner to come to you for free ganks, because Yasuo is a champion that is very easy to gank for due to his knockup and his ulti, which could CC the enemy for 2 seconds plus. Other tricks on Yasuo, which I wouldn't really call combos, are definitely his wall dashing. Or the wall dashes include golems, which is fairly easy, wolves, which can help sometimes, but you don't see it very often, Gromp, which is the main one I use, and Wraiths, which is definitely the hardest one, especially through Big Wraith. That one you actually have to practice. You have to practice a lot to get it down. Even I fail it if I don't practice it, but it can catch a lot of people off guard, and with practice, it can help in a lot of situations. And the best way to do them is under options, and when it says target champion only under settings, put that to like some key that you could press easily, because that is the best way to do wall hopping effectively. It lets it so you can go next to the monster and not auto attack it, so you could easily just let go of the button and then E through it, which is very helpful, and that's what I always use to wall hop. Another thing I've been asked a lot about Yasuo is his team fighting. Main way to play Yasuo in teamfights that I do is the main carry, which is basically just trying to get as much farm as you can and being the highest damage dealer on your team. Generally, you're going to do this when you're the AD carry or the mid laner. Basically, you just want to wait for CC to come out and then go in, so you don't get CC'd and insta-killed. You're going to have a high damage build when you play like this, so like Static Shiv, IE, Sterix, and Bloodthirster. It's going to be a very high damage build, and you just want to wait for CC to come out and then go in and then clean up kills, and always use wind wall for yourself. Another way you could play Yasuo is to build tankier with like a Phantom Minister build, which would be you could be the engage if no one else has engage. Obviously, it's not the best to be the engager, because you're usually the secondary engage, but if worse comes to worse, Yasuo is not really that bad at engaging, since he has his ulti and his knockup on Q. Also, that's another time when the EQ flash comes in handy, because you can catch people off guard and engage on people, a team fight with EQ flash. And another way you could play Yasuo in team fights, which is gonna sound weird, but you could actually be a peeler with him, which you would not see most Yasuo players playing like this. But if you're having a bad game and you're not fed, Yasuo's kit is actually pretty good at peeling your AD carry. So I know Yasuo players always want to be the main star, but sometimes you could just sit back. If you're 0-10, just sit by your AD carry, win wall, knock up anyone that goes on them, and you can actually win games like that if you actually just let someone else be the carry for once. The main thing that sets a good Yasuo player from a great Yasuo player is how you build up your lead and how you continue your lead. Just because you get a massive lead in the laning phase, that doesn't mean the game's over. You have to transition that lead in more ways than that. So after you get fed in the laning phase, you should usually put your bot lane mid and go bot lane and split, or split top and put the top laner bot. Doing this allows you to get solo experience and just get a lot of farm and bring someone to you. And usually when you're a mid laner, you're versing a mage, right? So their dueling is not very good. So if they have to match you, you could easily draw a lot of pressure to the lane because you could possibly dive them and they need 2 people for you. So the best thing to do after laning phase and after you split efficiently, after you push out to their tier 2 tower, you should get good control wards in their jungle and take their camps as much as you can. Taking enemy camps is probably the most important thing you could do mid-game. Not only does it give you more experience and more of a lead, but it gets rid of their lead too, because they're losing experience. So this is a double positive by taking away experience from them and putting experience on you. So this could generate a massive lead. And you see a lot of challenger players do this to build the leads that they get. It's probably one of the most important things you could do in the game to carry games.